What you're looking for, you can find it here on the Hope TV. What you're looking for, what you're looking for, you can find it here on the Hope TV. What you're looking for, whoa, welcome to the Hope TV. What you're looking for, you can find it here on the Hope TV. What you're looking for, what you're looking for, you can find it here on the Hope TV. What you're looking for, whoa, welcome to the Hope TV.
Set up free, y'all. Got the victory. Set up free, y'all. Got the victory. Set up free, y'all. Victory. Yes, I am. Set up free, y'all. Got the victory. Set up free, y'all. Got the victory. Set up free, y'all. Yes, I am.
We've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in His holy word. He's never failed us yet. It's your Hope Global Pastor, Pastor Jen, and this is our pastoral history. In 1876, the Greater Travelers Rest Baptist Church began as a little house by the side of the road. Brother Sam Stinson and others from the McDonald Road community conducted Sunday school in a one-room rest house for several months. In this rest house, Brother Sam Stinson conducted weekly prayer meetings, and rest was given to weary travelers on their way into town during the Civil War. From 1876 to 1877, Reverend William Tillman, affectionately named Father Tillman, who was a pastor of Weed Street, became the first pastor of the Travelers Rest Baptist Church. From 1877 to 1878, Reverend Martin Scruggs was called to pastor. From 1878 to 1879, Reverend Peter J. Bryant was called as pastor. And then several pastors gave leadership to the Travelers Rest Baptist Church. Reverend Anderson Lee, Reverend Frank Evans, Reverend Sanders, Reverend Anderson Smith, Reverend Zinnerman, Reverend John Parker, and Reverend Cyrus Brown. From 1916 to 1919, Reverend Paul Scruggs was installed. And then from 1917 to 1920, 3 pastors gave leadership to Travelers Rest: Reverend B.J. Johnson Sr., Reverend Clifford Holt, and Reverend Eddie Barber. And then from 1924 to 1932, Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. was installed as pastor. Upon the death of his father-in-law, Reverend A.D. Williams, he was called to pastor Ebenezer Baptist Church here in Atlanta, Georgia. And all of the King children, Christine King Farris, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Alfred Daniel Williams King were born while Dr. King pastored Travelers Rest Baptist Church. And then in 1932, Dr. Sandy F. Ray was called to pastor Travelers Rest. And from 1933 to 1940, Reverend J.W. Tate was installed as pastor. In 1934, under his leadership, the church was located at 119 Mason Avenue, and the church was renovated. From 1945 to 1957, Dr. L.A. Pinkston was installed as pastor. Then in 1957, a towering leader became the pastor of Travelers Rest Baptist Church. They selected the Reverend Hubert Floyd Shepherd, affectionately called the barefooted boy from Edgewood, as their new pastor. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me today about your parents and about yourself. So if there's someone watching or sharing with us that has been here less than 50 years or has just joined us, they may not know you. I know you, but they may not know you. So what would you like for our audience to know about you?
Okay, first of all, I am Ivory Shepherd Robertson. I am the daughter of Reverend Hubert Floyd and Ivory Collins Shepherd. I am their middle daughter. I am a mother of Ivory Elion Robertson, and I'm a teacher at Jonesboro High School in Clayton County.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So for those who did not have the pleasure and the blessing of being able to meet your parents, how would you describe them or introduce them to persons in our audience who would never have met them or who didn't meet them?
Well, they were wonderful people at home and at church or wherever they were in the community. People of great love for God's people, love for the church, and would sacrifice immensely for God. And I understand now, it was their calling. Some things I didn't understand as I was growing up, why give so much?
Right.
Whereas I do understand that they were
Yes.
fulfilling their calling
Yes.
from God.
Yes. So let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
What is an interesting childhood memory you have of them growing up? For those who didn't get a chance to meet them, who don't know them, give us a childhood memory.
A childhood memory. All of my memories living with the Shepherds were good memories or are good memories. My dad was the stabilizing force in our home. My mother, as usual, was all over the place. But it was a great time in my life, and I feel so blessed to have been a part of that household.
So our church has had some amazing leaders, but you know this, as our longest tenured pastor, the Shepherds were towering leaders in our history. And so can you tell us how some of those lessons, those values that you experienced in home with them growing up, how do those lessons show up in how you teach?
Okay, they show up every day. They were people of integrity, very dependable, and those qualities I try to, or they are a part of me now. Some of their qualities I didn't quite understand in terms of loving the unlovable.
Wow.
So, but as I reflect, they were just doing what God instructed in His Word for us all to do as Christians. So I'm very proud of them as I sit on this side of the aisle, I guess you could say. Very glad that they were who they were and that I could glean from them and embody those things and make my life good.
Absolutely. And isn't that what Jesus' earthly ministry was all about?
Exactly.
Loving those who others may have deemed difficult to love, right? Loving without limits. That was what Christ was all about, and it's good to hear that your parents embodied that same love ethic. So I didn't want to hold you long, and I just want to thank you for the time that you stopped by to share with us. And so I want to ask, as we conclude, what do you think your parents, or what word of encouragement would your parents share with our current church, with the church of today?
Okay.
What do you think they would share with us?
Probably the same message. Continue to love God, continue to allow God to move in your life, support your pastor, support your church, and leave all the consequences to God.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having this conversation with us and celebrating our 147th church anniversary.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pastor Shepherd led Travelers Rest for 47 years. And on November 23rd, 2003, Reverend H.F. Shepherd retired and preached his last sermon. But our history doesn't end there. In 2003, God sent a young preacher out of Macon, Georgia, my hometown, the Reverend Dr. E. Dewey Smith Jr. And on November the 2nd, 2003, Pastor Smith preached the sermon, "The Saints Are Scared and Scattered." Under his leadership, so much happened in our history. Under the vision of our current pastor, Dr. E. Dewey Smith Jr., the Tabitha's House initiative was launched, and he also we established a fully fledged counseling center. There's so much more that I could say, but for over 146 years, the House of Hope Greater Travelers Rest has been blessed with members committed to ministry, worship, outreach, and evangelism. And during our history, we've had more than 11,000 members. Additionally, our church has reached millions of people in over 160 countries via our online stream and Hope TV. God continues to bless us. We've come this far by faith, and that same faith will lead us on.
Grace and peace, family, and it's a blessing to have you here tuned in today to our Biblecast. Listen, I'm excited that you're here. It's going to be a great, great time. It's going to be a great month of conversation, and I'm appreciative to each of you for your time and for your presence. Listen, do me a favor. Call a friend, call a relative, and call a neighbor and let them know the Biblecast with the House of Hope Atlanta is on the airwaves. So everybody who's tuned in today, whether it's Apple TV, Roku, Twitch, Amazon, Fire TV, YouTube, Facebook, the various websites, and also to my WLVO Channel 21 family right here in Atlanta. Thank God for you, for all who tune in through WLVO TV. Thank you for being a part today. We're excited that you're here. It's certainly a blessing that you spent this time and you're spending this time with us. Listen, if this is your first time tuning in and you're watching through a platform that will allow you to type something in a chat, just type the number 1 in that chat. And that way members of our Hope Global family will know this is your first time viewing and they can appropriately welcome you to our family. We just appreciate you. Out of all the services and out of all the mediums that you could have spent time with, for you to be with us, it warms our hearts. And so I'm grateful to God for each of you. If you're watching through a platform that will allow you to subscribe, like, comment, or share, please do so now. By doing so, you help us to grow and get this word of hope out to more people around the world. So God bless you. Listen, back in the month of September, we started our monthly conversations, a new format. And the purpose of it with our initial month was to hear from you. As a matter of fact, our first month's topic was, God, I have questions. God, I need answers. And we solicited questions from our viewers and from our members from all our communities, in person and our global community. And we received so many questions that we're still processing those questions and putting them in, concretizing them for a monthly session. And so questions about God, the Bible, faith, life, family in general. And because of the myriad of questions that we received, today we are continuing our discussion on soul care. And I invited back with us for another week one of the key members of our team here, our pastoral staff team here, Pastor Sharice Cross, who's back with us. Welcome. Glad to have you back.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the conversation last week was so powerful, so impactful that we had to come back for a second dose of it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we're glad you're here. Listen, we're talking about soul care. Let me just quickly recap. We started 2 weeks ago trying to give you a great understanding of what is meant by soul. In my opinion, my humble estimation, sometimes people of faith in sacred and secular communities can't distinguish between soul and spirit. Mm-hmm. So we took you back to the book of Genesis chapter 1, where it talked about he made us in the image of God. We dealt with 1 Thessalonians 5:24, where Paul says, I pray that God will sanctify you and preserve you and keep you whole and blameless, even your spirit, your soul, and your mind. So that trichotomy, that trinity really, about the soul, about the spirit, and about the body. And so with that being said, last week we talked about souls in crisis and soul care. And this whole thing we're talking about soul care, but more specifically today, as we get into this holiday season, the closer we get to the holidays, we find that people are experiencing what has been called the dark night of the soul. And I want you to talk about that. Pastor Cross, what is really meant by that?
So a dark night of the soul is different from what we call our depression.
Okay,
So oftentimes we can even think those are interchangeable, but they're not.
great.
So depression is a mental disorder, a mental health disorder, which we talked about last week. It has to do with our mood. Whereas our dark night of the soul is a process by which our soul is being refined.
I want you to pause there for a moment because you
Yes,
said something that was so deep that I think people will miss it if you're not careful.
Mm.
We've been working to bridge the gap between the faith community and the mental health community.
Mhm.
We've been working to take away the stigmas and to normalize healthy conversations around mental health.
Yes.
But you said something very deep
Mm.
that I think you said something that depression
Mhm.
is something that has affected the mental health.
Yes.
I want to say that because most time, often, I can't say most, but often people think when I say I'm not well from a mental health perspective,
Mhm.
that means I'm insane.
Right. Right.
Just like your skin can have something
Mhm.
on it, a
Mhm.
bruise, a laceration, cocoa burn, charred, sunburn. Nobody ever said to a person who's sunburned
Mhm.
that you're crazy.
Right.
So because I'm a person that experiences depression,
Mhm.
that means the soul at that moment is not well.
That's right.
So if I have a cavity,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean you got the yuck mouth or something's wrong with you. It means you got a cavity and it needs to be fixed.
Right.
So when somebody says I'm doing something for my mental health or my mental health is not good,
Yes.
can you talk about that? Because the way you just said that, I'm like, wait a minute, that was, I don't want to run by that.
Mhm.
We're going to get to this, but I want to
Mhm.
make sure that people who are watching, because we tend to not, well, I'm good mental. No,
Mhm.
it's possible. Every person at some point in your life will go through something where your mental health is not good.
That's right.
That doesn't mean that you're insane or I don't want to use the words, but
Right.
no. But I want to, can you talk about that? Because it's so important.
Yes. So we hear all the time, we too blessed to be stressed.
Yes.
I could be blessed and stressed
Lord have
and
mercy.
depressed. How about that?
Lord have mercy.
Because it's a mood disorder,
My goodness.
which means, and that could be biological, it could be psychological, it could be physiological, it could even be familial, it could be something that runs in our family, it could be environmental. I could have been pushed into this depression because of death, chronic pain. We don't talk about that enough as we even get into the colder months.
Yes.
Pain starts to depress my mood.
Yes.
So these are things that happen, y'all. And we are so good to work on the neck down,
Yes.
but we don't like to check on the neck up.
My
The
God.
check up from the neck up.
My God.
That really impacts the whole body.
My goodness.
That's what that's about.
That's so good, family. I hope you heard that. The different things that can affect you mentally,
Yes.
emotional, mental health. And just like you take care, your skin can be, the teeth, eyes,
That's right.
the mind, the soul. Very, very important. I want to just normalize that.
Yes.
Yeah, you go. If it affects your mood, I don't want to eat today.
Right.
My mental health has been affected.
That's right.
If I'm eating too much or shopping because I'm trying to overcompensate
That's right.
or anesthetize pain, if it affects my mood, that means it can affect my mental health. And that's normal.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So you talked about depression.
Mhm.
We talked about anxiety and worry last week, how they were all relatives.
Yes.
But the dark night of the soul is different from souls in crisis
Hmm.
because the dark night of the soul works for the purpose of refinement.
Refining our soul.
Go ahead and talk about that.
So Thomas More, and there are others who talk about dark nights of the soul. So there are several resources. We'll mention those at the end. But the dark night of the soul is from God.
Mm.
That's the thing.
My God.
This is not a demon tormenting us, if you will, as we think. This is different from a disorder. This is God.
Mm.
This is God refining our soul, stretching us, growing us, if you will, growing our theology and our faith, prayerfully as we come on the other side of this dark night of the soul.
My God.
And also, Thomas More says, our intelligence is deepened.
Through the dark night of the soul.
Our intelligence is deepened through a dark night of the soul.
My goodness.
Yes, sir.
That God will allow you to experience
Yes.
a dark night of the soul
Mm-hmm.
so you can grow,
Yes.
be refined,
Yes.
have more wisdom,
Yes.
have more intelligence.
Yes.
Let me dumb it down to not be as stupid. You know, Marvin Sapp says, I'm stronger, I'm wiser,
Yeah.
I'm better. And how God can use the
Come on.
dark night of the soul. That is so good. Thomas More, you said.
Yes.
And you know, when you talk about the Psalms
Mm-hmm.
and how even in the psalmist, what is so interesting is people talk about, you know, don't question God, things like that, don't question.
Right.
But I like how even in the Bible, the psalmist
Yes.
had to have a conversation with his soul.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about that?
Yes. Psalm 42:11 says, "Why, my soul, are you downcast?" Talking to their own soul. He's talking to his own soul.
Yeah.
Why are you downcast? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Savior and my God. Now that's a process.
Absolutely.
Because first I need to question what is going on here. What's going on with you? Why are you down? How did you get down here? How did you get low? And it's a process for me to even get to putting my hope back in God, because we're going to talk about what happens.
You know, and I think sometimes too, for me, that scripture is so apropos, not only because of the process that Pastor Cross just talked about, but for me, it's sometimes the battle
Yes.
between my spirit and my soul.
Yes. That's good.
Like my soul may be disquieted,
Mm-hmm.
but my spirit wants to praise.
Yes, sir.
So it's like I got a battle going on in between those two. And sometimes it's a matter of which one's going to win out.
Yes.
Will the soul find stability and peace? Can the spirit clean and sanitize
Yeah.
my soul? Or I like, part of me wants to worship, but then I got a disquieted soul.
Yes.
So it's not that God, I don't love you, I don't trust you. It's not.
Yeah.
My spirit part of me wants to connect,
Mm.
but the spirit part is not the problem.
That's right.
It's the soul that's the issue. And I love the conversation. I love the
Yes.
conversational aspects, as you just mentioned, being able to talk to yourself.
Yes.
So what's going on with you there? Get yourself together. Why are you downtrodden like this?
Yes.
And I think that sometimes we got to have survival monologues, and I think it's so important. You said something about Job in terms of preparing for this lesson, the dark night of the soul. You want to talk about him now?
Yes. Well, let me add one more psalm since
Yes.
we're there. Then we're gonna jump
Please.
over to Job. Psalm 77, one of my
Yeah.
favorite psalms.
Mhm.
First of all, I love the book of Psalm because it is where we are talking to God.
Absolutely.
And there's so much turmoil that's going on,
Yes.
but it's real.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
not like, oh, thank you, Lord. No. Why, God?
Absolutely.
My soul, I think of God and my soul is disquieted, meaning my soul is anxious.
Yeah.
When I think of God, I'm supposed to think happy thoughts. No, when
Wow.
I think of God, Psalm 77 says, my soul is disquieted, it's anxious.
Wow.
What happens when God makes you anxious
Ain't that something?
and not in a good way?
Ain't that something?
That's
Wow.
what Psalm 77 says. It said,
Wow.
when I think of you, you hold my eyelids open all night.
Wow.
I got insomnia because you, God, have me having insomnia. You are the one who has my eyelids open all night long.
Wow.
I got insomnia just because of you.
Trying to process it, trying to understand, trying to think about your sovereignty and my own struggle and infirmity. That can, who are you? What are you doing in my life?
Well,
where were you? Are you
well.
going to come through? If you love me while I'm going through such a beautiful dichotomy
Yes.
of authenticity
Yes.
and conversation.
Conversation.
And he's not being disrespectful. Psalm
That's right.
77. That's the problem.
Yes.
That's a relationship.
Yes,
Keep
it
going.
is. Yes, it is. And he talks about how I've called to you. You used to answer me.
Mm.
We used to have a conversation.
Lord have
Now it's
mercy.
quiet.
Ooh.
And this is a very, very great example of a dark night of the soul.
Ooh.
That's what Psalm 77 is.
My
Read it in
God.
your time. Job goes through a journey of a dark night of the soul in which he is chosen by God.
Mm.
He says there's a conversation in the heavenlies with God and the devil. And God says, have you considered my servant Job. Have you considered him? Job don't even know what's happening. Job is living his life, best life, family, kids, just having a great life. Everything's fine. All of a sudden, tragedy after tragedy, death after death starts to happen for Job. And he starts to, and his friends and his wife start to question and talk to him and really get in his head. And he's already in his head about who God is, because he's known God to be this faithful God, right? We always say God is faithful. I'm too blessed to be stressed. He's done a lot for me. I can't lose with God. But what happens when you do lose and you keep taking L's? What happens when you start taking those L's and suffer? What happens if you do get cancer? Your child gets cancer, someone dies. So what Job does is he is pushed into this major disruption with death, and it sends him into this dark night of the soul, and he has witnesses that are there.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah, and you know, and unfortunately sometimes the witnesses and those around your community,
My God.
sometimes we don't know what to say.
Yes. Right.
You know, and when you think about Job's wife, as you mentioned, and Job's friends,
Yes.
you know, sometimes your friends, it's best sometimes not to say anything. You can minister just by being present.
Come on.
Sometimes if you don't know the right thing to say,
That's right.
you know, Job is being blamed. You know what I mean? So sometimes as friends, we got to know how to handle a friend.
Yes.
How do you handle your friends when they're going through the dark night?
Well,
You know, will you be the one that makes life more miserable for them, pushing the spiral, them doing more into a downward spiral? That's very, very good. You want to keep going?
yes, it's a turmoil that God takes us through again. This is God refining us, growing us, and stretching us. And it's done in the witness of other people. This is every day. When we say life is lifing, this is happening in real time. And this is what I love about the story of Job, is that life was still happening. And it was in the witness of people. And we get to see him having that tough conversation with God and with himself. So this is important. We get to see the toil of the emotional and spiritual toil that we have. It doesn't mean that we are denying God, but there are times for our faith to grow that we do have to start to ask some deep questions.
You know, I talk to people sometimes, and I've been listening to a lot of people lately. They feel as if God doesn't have to use suffering to develop us, or God doesn't have to use a dark night to develop us. God doesn't have. That's bad theology, to put bad things on God. And I think what people tend to not understand is whether God authorizes it or God allows it.
Yeah, sir.
You know, it reminds me of what the psalmist says: "Before I was afflicted, I went astray." So God used the afflictions to get me back in line. The afflictions had a refining purpose. And while some people, God is so good, God is so holy, God doesn't have to use suffering. But God doesn't. Yeah, that's true. God doesn't have to. But I do believe God will use the dark night for refinement. So those who are watching, that people disagree. You guys are too fatalistic and nihilistic in church, talking about, you know, why does God have to use suffering, or why does God have to use struggle? They call it a struggle theology. I like to call it the dark night of the soul. I believe that God can do it in the presence of others, because I think sometimes prosperity can't refine us.
That's right.
I think sometimes some development has to take place in the dark room.
Yes.
And when I read scriptures, I see over and over again how people found strength, found intelligence, even found a closer walk with God through the dark night of the soul. Keep going. I just want to throw that in because a lot of people now, seminary trained people and others who went through theological institutions, who would accuse us of being fatalistic and blaming and using God to wrong to justify suffering and evil. We're talking about how God uses that for refinement.
That's right. It's what happens in life.
Yes.
This is our life walk. And so at different stages of life, there is going to be a point where you're going to be stretched at some point.
Yes.
With something that happens, and you will be tested, and God will use that as a testimony. So we always say there's no test without a testimony, but there's no testimony without a test.
Right.
We have those. And we're not being fatalistic by saying, oh, I can't wait to get abused, or God's going to do. No, this is life.
Yes.
And how we use that moment, how we steward that journey is going to determine where we go on the other side of
That's
this.
so good. That's so good. And so when we talk about the dark night of the soul, it's emotional, spiritual turmoil, feeling of isolation and detachment, loneliness. Want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so it is your journey. It's your walk.
Mm.
When we have our homegoings, it's that person in that casket. None of us are going with them.
Have mercy.
We all got our walk to walk. Every
Yes.
single one of us got to work out our own soul salvation. Every single one of us.
Mm.
And so the journey may seem lonely. It may seem like everybody else is winning, everybody else is built up in their faith except for you.
Mm.
Job was, even though people were around,
Yeah.
he was still alone. He
Mm.
felt alone.
Yes.
Nobody could understand what was going on inside of him.
Yes.
Nobody understands what's going on inside of us. That's why
Yeah.
you can't mind read.
My goodness.
We can't read each other's mind. He is going through that journey, a personal walk with God. And it will be lonely because nobody else understands like God does. And that's why we lift up and we seek him. That's why prayer is important.
So we talk about loss of meaning, loss of purpose.
Yeah.
So the dark night of the soul can make us feel like we've lost meaning and purpose in life.
Yes. So if it was a death, if it was betrayal, if it was a disease, whatever it is, anytime something like that happens in your life, a major disruption, you will. And it's okay to say, well, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Why?
Wow.
What really is my purpose?
Wow.
I thought my purpose was this.
Yes.
And when it shifts, then what happens?
Wow.
My husband died. What happens? Okay,
Wow.
well, I knew myself as this.
Wow.
Now I have to shift.
Wow.
And so that meaning and that purpose, what if my children, when they leave,
Yes.
empty nest, we
Yes.
think that there's a disruption there,
Absolutely.
depending on how much you invested in your children or how much you
Yes.
poured yourself into them, that
Yeah.
can be a major disruption.
Absolutely.
So what is my purpose now? My kids are going, what is my purpose now?
Wow.
So loss of meaning and purpose can definitely happen in life.
So now we talk about, the other thing that you mentioned was when I'm going through the dark night, that can be moments of doubt and deep questioning.
Yes. Yes.
That's almost what you just meant. Do you want to
Yeah.
add more? Because it's
Is
simple what you
God
just said.
good? Is
My
God?
My
Why
God.
does God let this happen?
My God.
God, do you love me?
Mm.
Am I your child?
Mm.
Am I really who you say I am?
My goodness.
Are you really who you say you are?
My God. My God.
Those are questions we don't want to say out loud.
Yes.
Why you let this happen to me and my family?
Mm.
Why?
My God.
Those are deep questions that we ask. And there are more that you may ask.
Mm.
And that we start to wrestle with ourselves.
And you also said that the dark night of the soul can be transformative
Yes.
and lead to a transformative process. You want
Mm-hmm.
to talk about that?
Yes. How you started is not how you're going to end.
Mm.
So what I knew, I don't know.
My God.
What I thought I knew, I really don't know.
My goodness.
On the other side of that, I now am a new person. My worldview has now widened from what I thought I knew.
Wow.
I knew God to be good. Well, the old saints, if I could put it this way, you can't make me doubt him because I know too much about him. That's a transformative process.
My God.
You can't just tell me you know that he's good without really knowing and going through a process of how he's been good in your life
Have mercy.
in a real way.
Have mercy.
So we go from orthodoxy to orthopraxy.
It's funny. I had to do a message last week, and I was talking to some young men that I'm a chaplain of the team,
Mhm.
and I was talking to them because our theme all year is I believe.
Mm.
And I told them, I dealt with what believe means,
Yeah,
but I challenged them at some point in life, you got to move from believe to know.
come on.
I used to believe God will
Yes.
make a way.
Yes.
My mama preached it. My grandfather preached it. My daddy preached it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe God will provide.
Mm-hmm.
But the older I got,
Mm-hmm.
and going through the dark nights of the soul,
Yes. Yes.
I no longer believe God will provide.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know it.
Yes.
Life, but it took the dark night of the soul
Yes.
for me to move
Mm-hmm.
from believing to knowing.
That's right.
So I know God as a provider. I know
Mhm.
God will. I don't need anybody. I don't believe God will make a way.
Mm-hmm.
I now know God will make a way That's because I've been in situations where I couldn't see a way.
Wow.
And so it, as you just said,
That's
the
right.
dark night of the soul transformed me. That's just very, very powerful. So how do you
Yes.
navigate those dark nights? How do you navigate the dark nights?
So it's a couple of things I've been thinking about is the first thing is awareness and acceptance. Being aware of what's happening and acceptance. Embracing this as an opportunity for growth. And then thirdly, challenging our limiting beliefs about ourselves and the world. We've been doing that. We were doing that last month when we talked about God and sexuality.
Yes.
There was a stretch in our limiting beliefs for some of us about what we know and then what we know about the world. But you do that with some spiritual direction. We do that when we come to church. Our pastor gives us great insight and words and preaches well. We get all of that here. It's important to note that even when you are going through this dark night and you want to navigate it, if you can, don't stop coming to church. I learned this even in seminary. Stay in your community of faith.
Yes.
Because what's happening is through this dark night, your faith is being deconstructed. In order to deconstruct, we got to take it apart. And so while it's fragmented out, you don't want to be out there by yourself somewhere getting all kind of other winds and doctrines. Stay where you're rooted in a Bible-believing church. And so that you can stay formed while you're being conformed.
You know, I've heard so many people tell me, Pastor, I'm coming back to church. I'm going through some things.
Right.
When I come through them, then I'll be back to church.
Yeah.
What you just said is that's the worst posture possible.
Yeah.
When you're going through things, that's not the time to stay away.
Yeah.
That's the time, from what you're saying, is to come, to be transformed, and navigate it, to find out. I like what you said. What might God be inviting me to learn and discover during this time?
Yeah.
And how can I deepen my relationship with God amidst the darkness? So that's not the time to run from God.
Yeah.
And Pete Scazzaro says sometimes our emotional immaturity comes when we use God to run from God.
Yes.
Yes. I'm in a different season in my life. I'm going to step away while I'm in this season in my life while God is working. No, don't use God to run from God. So when you're going through the dark night of the soul, as Pastor Cross said, that's time to connect. Yes. Very, very powerful. What are some scriptures, or what are some, what kind of biblical guidance do you give to people who are facing that dark night?
To remember that God is a very present help in the time of trouble. I want us to really get that.
So soothing.
God is a present help. He is omnipresent. He's omniscient and he's omnipotent. He's all powerful, all knowing, and he's all present. He's everywhere. And that's a place that you can find comfort in. It takes time, y'all. I'm saying all of this, but I want you to really get that it's a process to get here.
Yeah.
And when you come to church and you are in this dark night of the soul, you may not be able to participate in everything. You don't have to join every ministry, but you do need to hear. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So when I say make sure you're staying in the faith community, you need to be hearing, not trying to get active and doing everything. You really need to sit in what you're in. So, yes.
I like what you said earlier about it's a process.
Yeah.
See, it's important that you see Pastor Cross
My God.
speaking today from this position. The things she's sharing with you are things that she shared with you when she was there.
My God.
So this is not theory talking.
That's right. No.
So the thing she's sharing is how she has faced the dark nights.
That's right.
How she survived and came out.
Yes.
That's what you're hearing. That's what I'm trying to share with you. So you can draw strength from Scripture during the times. You can, what stories of the Bibles and what verses can resonate with you during your struggles. There are scriptures, there are Bible characters, there are Bible stories that are out right there that you can glean and garner strength from, even during the dark night of the soul. And then how can you apply the lessons and encouragements from Scripture to your current situation? You want to talk about that, Annie?
So when we're reading, and I love how a lot of people will interface and share with us how this is my scripture. People have life scriptures that they have, that they connect with. One person may say, "Trust in the Lord and trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not on your own understanding,
Yeah.
but acknowledge God and He'll direct your path."
Yeah.
That may be your scripture that you use for everything. You apply that as you're walking through life. Use those for your lesson, but also encouragement. Keep going back to that.
Yes.
I go back to several scriptures
Yes.
that I have to use. One of mine is, "I praise you, Lord, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and that my soul knows right well." My soul knows right well.
My
So it's
God.
not enough for me to think it, but it's really a deeper knowingness. There's a knowingness that you really made me. But if you read that whole psalm, the psalmist is talking about how God knows me afar off. He knows my thoughts afar off. He knew me before I was even formed in my mother's womb, when I was yet an unformed substance. That means He knows everything about me. If I went to the depths of hell, He said He'll be there.
My God.
If I'm up in the glory, He'll be there. God is everywhere. It's just a beautiful description of how God is continually there with you. He's constant. He never fails. He's consistent. He's intimate and knows you fully. So if you say, "They don't know me, don't nobody know me," God does.
My God.
It's an encouragement for me. I use that scripture when I'm feeling low, because I know God knows. If nobody else knows, God knows.
You know, it's so powerful to hear you say that, because you can feel that this is real for you and what you use. You're not just giving. And I thought about my own situation to this very day. When I go through a dark night, whether it be a dark night of the soul, whether it be a soul in crisis, whether it be worry, or as you said last week, anxiety, or melancholy or mania, whatever it may be. Maybe the past three or 4 years, that if I'm having insomnia, here's what I say to myself. There's a clause in the song that I've loved this song since it was written and produced 20 plus years ago. But this is what I say to myself when I can't sleep. Verse of the song. Just one stanza. Hear the words. And I say this over and over again. Forever faithful towards me. Always providing for me. Great is your mercy toward me. Great is your grace. If I can't sleep at night, right now, in the middle of if it's 2:00 in the morning and I'm up and I'm stressed, I just say to myself, and I said under my breath, forever faithful towards me, always providing for me. Great is your mercy toward me. Great is your grace. And that really comes from the book of Jeremiah. The book of Lamentations. Great is thy faithfulness. Because your Lord's mercy is a song written by Don Moen, ministered by Donna McClurkin, produced by Kevin Bond. Forever faithful towards me, always providing for me. Great is your mercy toward me. Great. I say that. That been some nights I may have said it 100 times. I keep saying that line silently until I go to sleep at night. What you just said, I found something that ministers to me and helps to kind of to stabilize me. So I don't know. Again, that's dealing with the dark night of the soul. Now let's talk about prayer, because it's a great segue into prayer in terms of when you're facing the dark night. So I know we're going to talk more about that next week. But what do you want to say about that today?
I want to you mentioned it, and we talked about it at the beginning, is that it feels like there's a disconnect.
Yes.
And how do we reconnect?
Yes.
By communicating.
My God. Ooh.
Communicating.
My God.
So how do we do that? We start to engage. If you had to re-engage because you may have disconnected and said, I don't even want to talk. And that's okay. You may have a moment where I don't even want to talk right now, God. I'm not feeling you. I'm not feeling this. At some point, let them know why you're not feeling it. God is big enough to handle any feeling that you have, any question that you have.
My God.
Big enough.
My God.
Start the conversation.
My God.
Engage in prayer. That's how we start to reconnect.
Yes.
And you're reconnecting with God because God has never left.
My.
Never left. So we're just reconnected, not God. So that's what we do. We start to incorporate God back into our life every day by having that conversation.
Even if the conversation is uncomfortable.
Well,
when Jesus says, my God, why are you forsaking me? That's not Father, I love it. That's not an easy conversation to have.
No.
But it's a conversation nonetheless. And as she said, God is big enough to handle your conversations. How do we create space and for silence and stillness to listen for God's guidance? What kind of suggestions do you have for us on that?
What I would say for that is that we take time. We have to prioritize this. If it's in the day, if it's in the morning, some of us are not morning people.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be deep and get up at 4. If that's your thing, get up at 4. If it's at 5 or 6, 7, whatever time, take that moment. If it's starting with a few minutes up to half an hour to an hour, whatever you need, take that time so that you could just take some time and be quiet and listen to that still small voice. Hear from God, but take a moment just to hear from God and to hear from him. So yeah.
I mean, she's thrown a whole lot at us to meditate, and I hope you get this in your notes, because if you apply this to your life, if we apply this to our lives, that refinement that you talked about, the refinement and the closeness and the intimacy with God, and the reconnection with God, and the wisdom and the improvement and the growth can be made evident in our lives. I think it's very, very powerful. So the person who, I hope you hear this distinction last week: souls in crisis, dark night of the soul. Learn how to work out your soul's salvation. Hope you heard that. See, a lot of times even we quote that in reference to our spirit. Learn how to work out your soul's salvation.
Yes.
That's so your soul needs to be saved. Did you hear that? I want you to listen to the language. Some of our souls need rescuing.
Yes.
So how do you make sure that your soul, what is the process for your soul salvation? So for the person who may be going through the dark night of the soul tonight, what are some ways? What are 50? I know you came up with 15 ways. We're going to put this as a meme this week. This is going to go out all week long. Just so I want you to copy this and send it to others. I want you to put this on your Facebook, just so we can help other people to know how to navigate through the dark nights of the soul. So let's talk about those things. I want you to share those things with those who are listening. How do they navigate through the dark night of the soul?
So the first one would be self-reflection. Take time to introspect and explore the depths of your emotion and your desire. Because our dark nights of the souls, and we'll have to do a part 2 at some point, but they are navigated by desires as well. Because God knows our thoughts. He knows our intents. He knows our hearts. He knows all of those things are far off. He knows those thoughts are far off. He knows what's going on with each of us, which is so amazing. He's trying to refine each of us.
That's so good.
So it's deep down. This is deep self-reflection. Seek understanding. Dive deep into the meaning and purpose behind your passion and your desire. Embrace vulnerability. Allow yourself to be open and raw. And embrace those intense emotions. Sometimes we want to sanitize, as you said, because we want to make everything clean.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yes.
Life is messy.
Embrace it.
It's dirty. It just is. It is what it is. Connect with others. So even though you feel isolated, make sure that you have trusted people that can be around you, that are not going to disparage you or shame you.
Yes.
For doubting or feeling how you're feeling.
Yes.
Make sure you got some grown folk around you. That's okay to allow you to fall out, melt down, whatever you got to do. Practice self-compassion. Again, we talked about last week. How would you talk to your best friend if they were going through? Same thing here. If you're going through this dark night, how would you encourage? If someone else you knew was going through it, how would you encourage them? Do that. Seek creative outlets. Keep moving, even though it may feel like you don't want to do anything. Seek to be creative in that. Music. So maybe at some point, it's hard for you to hear sermons. Could be.
Yes.
Could be. I don't want to hear no sermons right now.
Yeah.
But I want to hear some music.
Yes.
It may be jazz. It may not be gospel. Or it may be, I want to hear women that are singing. Or I may want to hear men that are singing.
Yeah.
You know, I may want to hear contemporary. Or I want to hear some hymns.
Yes.
So just be creative in that. Find inspiration. So look for books. Look for resources. I mentioned some and we'll have some at the end. Cultivate gratitude. Again, making sure that we're thankful and spending time on being grateful for what's going on in life. Explore our spirituality and faith.
Yes.
That's what we've been doing.
Yes.
We've been having these theological reflections for these last couple of months, and we're growing our muscles And faith is stretched. Faith is a muscle. They
Yes.
always say it's a muscle.
My God.
It has to be worked.
Yes.
So we have to put some weight on it. So, and it's okay if it's heavy. It's okay if it doesn't feel good. Sometimes it doesn't, but
Yeah.
that's how we grow. Engage in self-care. So again, taking care of ourselves, making sure you're prioritizing yourself in this journey. Practice mindfulness and being present, exploring your feelings. If you need to seek professional help, we're asking, and I put seeking a spiritual director.
Yes.
So there are people that are called spiritual directors.
Yes.
They're different from counselors.
Right.
They help you guide through spiritual journeys or spiritual dark places, dark nights of the soul. That's really what they work with.
Yes.
And they're out there. So you can cultivate or connect with one of them. Or you may need some professional help. You can deal with those counselors or therapists who do work with people who are dealing with some spiritual issues. Nurture healthy relationships. Make sure that you're connecting with people who are healthy. Again, make sure you're keeping those. Honor your boundaries and then trust this process.
Yes.
It's a process, y'all. Life is a process. And everything God does with us, he does in process.
Yes. Honor your boundaries. You need boundaries because
Mhm.
when you're going through the dark night of the soul,
Mm.
not having boundaries
Mm.
can turn that dark night to the soul,
Mm.
dark nights into dark weeks and dark months. So who you have in your life can intensify,
Yes.
and extend it to more than what it should be. I hope you were blessed. You named a couple of books earlier.
Yes, sir.
And I know tomorrow we're having a conversation for those who want to be a part of the extended conversations. We have 3 more conversations
Yes.
on the dark nights of the soul. Tomorrow, which is the 11th, the 16th of November. Then Monday, which is the 20th, and then Tuesday, the 21st.
Yes.
So tomorrow we deal with theology, Bible, and loneliness. Monday, relationships. I'm in a space in life where I feel alone. And Tuesday, hot topics. Is it okay to cuff during this season? Lord have mercy. We got some conversations for you next 3
Yes.
Zoom sessions. If you're interested, how can I get the information about the Zoom?
You can log on to lifenightszoom.com. Log on to lifenightszoom.com.
All the information is there. Listen, we're providing it for you. And if you know somebody who may be going through they may be a soul in crisis, or they may be going through the dark night of the soul, the information is here for you. We're trying to empower you. And I want you to share this word with somebody else that their life can be impacted. Listen, I came to tell you that while spiritual directors are there, we have the strength of boundaries from our friends and from
Yes.
those we love. We have therapists, we have psychologists, psychiatrists, we have preachers, we have prayer warriors who all can help us to navigate those dark nights of the soul. But can I tell you something? We have a Christ who said, I've come that you might have life
Yes.
and that you might have it more abundantly. And if you are a soul in crisis, or if you're going through the dark night of the soul, I want to encourage you to give him a try. His word tells us that weeping can endure for the night,
Yes.
but joy can come in the morning. If you've never accepted Jesus Christ, he said, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I'm meek and lowly in heart. You shall find rest for your souls. That it is. You shall find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. If you're here, and I want to introduce you, if you've never met my Lord and my Savior, he can help the soul to be managed and be navigated. You can leave here saying, my soul loves Jesus. Yes, you can leave here saying, my soul has been anchored in the Lord. If you want to accept Christ as your Lord and Savior, I want you to get your phone right now and text the word salvation to the number 678-201-1351. Text that word right now, salvation. And we will share with you how you can invite him into your heart so you can love the Lord with your mind, your soul, and your spirit. Or maybe you want to connect with the community to help you to navigate through life and help you to navigate through life when there are dark nights of the soul. You can text the word connect, whether you're in Atlanta or Alaska, Stone Mountain, or Sudan. Text the word connect to 678-201-1351. And then lastly, if you want prayer, somebody to stand with you while you're facing what you're facing, text the word prayer. Get your phone, text the word prayer to 678-201-1351. Then last but not least, if you've been blessed by this ministry, you believe in what we're doing, and you want to help us to continue to see souls saved, bodies healed, and hell-bound destinies altered, If you want to see ministry still emanate from this place where a kingdom agenda is our priority, I want you to give. You can give right now. If you're a member, you haven't given your tithes, you can give by text to give. You can give by Cash App now. You can give through Zelle, finance@gtrbc.org. You can give through the website. Click the giving links and follow the prompts accordingly. Or if you want to send it to the P.O. Box, our P.O. Box is P.O. Box 361-499, Decatur, Georgia 30036. Again, P.O. Box 361-499, Decatur, Georgia 30036. I want you to give. There's also a QR code on the screen that has all the giving methods right there. I love for you to support the ministry if you've been blessed by it. I'm just grateful. You gave a book earlier that I want to share with the people. Thomas More, I think you mentioned the name, just
Yes, sir.
for somebody who wants to read further. I know we're going to have more in the Zoom conversations, but I want you to just share that with the people before we log off.
Yes, sir. It was Thomas More, Dark Nights of the Soul. He also has a book called Soul Care. So those are 2 resources, and we'll have a couple of more that we'll share with you.
Listen, I hope you've been blessed as I have. Pastor Cross has done an amazing job presenting, and I hope that you have gleaned and you've listened and you're soaking it and you allow it to saturate, that you get these notes. Go to the website with a resource link, click the Bible study link, and you can download these notes so you can just go over them over and over and over again. Share with a friend, a family, friend, a relative, and a neighbor, and associate, and watch your life be enhanced. Listen, we got to leave you now. Our time is far spent, but as always, remember this: even those dark nights of the soul, God will be with you. You can make it through it. He knows what's best for you. And as always, if you'll be good to God, God will be good to you. Until next time, take care. See you soon.
Your left, right,
Corey, can you just come on and quit playing?
your left, right, left. Did that? You gotta salute. That's how you salute. Crystal, I'm giving an homage to the veterans out here, and you messing me up.
How about I give them something much more appropriate, okay? To all of our veterans here in person today or watching online. On this day, we ask you to join us in honoring our veterans. Veterans Day is a special day when we honor the bravery, sacrifice, and selflessness of the men and women who have dedicated themselves to protecting our freedoms. We owe a debt of gratitude to the veterans in our community as well as those across the nation. Their courage and commitment remind us of the values that we hold dear: liberty, justice, and equality. They have shown us what it means to sacrifice for something greater than ourselves. We honor and thank you for your service. If you have served in the military, would you please stand as we express our gratitude for your service to our country, both past and present? Now, as you prepare to take your seat, know that we offer our appreciation and support for your service. Please stop by the Veterans Table to receive your token of appreciation and special information for veterans.
I mean, that's basically what I was trying to get to before you cut me off. I was just trying to give a little. That was my left, right? No. Well, let's talk about today's shenanigans. Okay. Now, most of you should all be aware by now that our church anniversary is officially on next Sunday, November 19th.
Yes.
But we are celebrating all month long. Now, we started the celebration by showing love to our legacy and honoring all of our members who have been with us for 50 plus years.
Don't do it.
And this Sunday, we are celebrating our lineage. See how we went from legacy to lineage? You see that?
Gotcha. Yeah,
And we're excited to see you all in your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and your 80s attire. Me and Crystal got on like that 80s look, you know, that white. Yeah,
Oh, what they call it?
Choir number 2.
Choir number 2.
Usher boy look.
Okay. Well, next Sunday for church anniversary, please wear your generational colors of black for builders, brown for boomers, gray for busters, red for bridgers, and blue for blossoms. We will have our traditional church anniversary celebration with our generational dance, and our very own Pastor Reginald Sharp from Fellowship Chicago will be our guest preacher. Our month-long celebration will culminate with Dr. R.A. Vernon from the Word Church in Cleveland, Ohio, as our guest preacher.
And this is to our global online church family. Now, we know that there's no way we can do ministry without you. So we want you to stay connected in every way possible. If you need prayer, text the word prayer.
If you'd like to be saved, text the word salvation. And if you'd like to become a member of the House of Hope Atlanta, please text the word connect to 678-201-1351.
Now, family, you spoke and we listened, so we want to stay connected as a virtual community. So our senior pastor, Dr. E. Dewey Smith Jr., and Pastor Jen, our global pastor, will be sharing new content that is specifically for our global fam and virtual church. To receive real-time ministry updates, devotional content, and ministry opportunities, scan the QR code on the screen. And as always, we want you to know that we appreciate your engagement and your generosity. And here at the House of Hope, we don't want to see anyone go without gifts for the holiday. Please join our prison ministry and its community partners in the annual Angel Tree program for the holiday season. Participation in Angel Tree provides an amazing opportunity for all of us to make a difference in the lives of those who are in need during the Christmas holiday. Partnering with Prisoner Fellowship Angel Tree provides support to the families of prisoners by delivering Christmas gifts on behalf of incarcerated parents. If you'd like to participate, you may pick up an Angel Tree gift tag after today's service. For more information, please email member@gtrbc.org or contact the church's office.
Crystal, guess what?
What?
We're done for today. That's it. We're done.
Okay. Until we meet again, please remember that life with God is better in every way, every day. Be blessed.
Now, Crystal, earlier you were kind of hating on my marching skills a little
Wasn't.
bit. My left, right, and then my salute.
That was a
when
mess.
you do the salute, you gotta give it to him.
That was a mess.
You gotta mean that thing. You see how I gave and took it down like
A
that?
mess.
It ain't though, because I'm trying to salute our
You
veterans.
didn't do it right.
Well, I thank you for your service. I don't know why
We
she
do
acting
thank
like
you.
this.
And that
We going
thank
to
you.
church.